Kenneth McDuff grew up in Rosebud, Texas, the fifth of 6 children in a seemingly idyllic family. His father, John Allen, ran a successful concrete business during the Texas construction boom of the 1960s. However, beneath the surface, the McDuff's family dynamics played a significant role in shaping the future behavior of Kenneth. He was indulged by his family, particularly his mother, Addie, who earned the nickname Pistol Packin' Mama after threatening a school bus driver with a gun. This example of what's acceptable may have contributed to McDuff's entitled attitude and aggressive behavior. At Rosebud High School, McDuff developed a reputation as a bully, targeting only weaker individuals after a humiliating loss in a fight with a popular athlete. He eventually quit school and worked for his father's business, where he developed a charm that would later deceive many. McDuff often bragged about his lawn mowing skills, claiming that old ladies loved his work and that it made others jealous. But beneath this strange charm lay a darker truth. McDuff was convicted of a series of burglaries and sent to prison, a turning point into his descent into violence and crime. As we delve deeper into the life of Kenneth Allen McDuff, we find that his criminal record began to take shape about 2 years before his first murder conviction. In 1964, at just 18 years old, McDuff was already making a name for himself as a prolific burglar, terrorizing communities across central Texas. He was convicted of 12 counts of burglary and attempted burglary across 3 Texas counties. The courts handed down 12 4-year prison terms to be served concurrently. However, McDuff's time behind bars was short-lived, as he made parole in December 1965. Kenneth soon found himself back in prison after becoming involved in a violent fight. Yet he was released once again, and it was during this time that his darker tendencies began to emerge. McDuff's charm and charisma masked a sinister intent, and those who knew him began to notice a change. McDuff's accomplice in the 1966 triple murder, Roy Dale Allen, revealed that McDuff openly bragged about his criminal exploits, claiming to have raped and killed 2 young women. The disturbing boast would prove to be a chilling precursor to the horrors that would soon unleash. Green would later describe McDuff as a master manipulator, able to talk his way out of trouble and charm his way into getting anything he wanted. McDuff's crimes would only continue to escalate in brutality and frequency. His ability to manipulate those around him, combined with his growing sense of invincibility, created a deadly cocktail that people did not see coming. On August 6, 1966, Kenneth Allen McDuff and his accomplice, Roy Dale Green, committed a crime that would haunt the small town of Everman, Texas, for years to come. McDuff, who had just met Green a month earlier, spent the day pouring concrete for his father's business. But as the sun set, his mind was on other plans. McDuff noticed Edna Louise Sullivan, a 16-year-old high school student, and her friends, Robert Brand and Mark Dunman, standing beside their parked car at a baseball field. Kenneth parked 150 yards away, then walked up, threatening the trio with his .38 caliber Colt revolver, and ordered them into the trunk of their car. With his accomplice Green following in McDuff's car, they drove the victims to a remote field where McDuff's true intentions became crystal clear. He instructed Green to put Sullivan in the trunk of his Dodge and then fired 6 shots into the trunk of the Ford, killing Dunman and Brand. Sullivan was then taken to another location, raped repeatedly by both McDuff and Green. Kenneth then asked for something to strangle her with. Green handed him his belt, but instead, McDuff used a 3-foot-long broomstick from his own car to choke her to death. The sheer brutality of the crime was only matched by the callousness of the perpetrators. McDuff and Green drove to a gas station, bought a Coca-Cola, and then spent the night at Green's house. The next day, McDuff buried his revolver and washed his car, attempting to cover his tracks. But Roydale Green's conscience caught up with him, and he confessed to his parents, who convinced him to turn himself in. McDuff was arrested by Sheriff Albert Pamplin and the Deputy U.S. Marshal, T.P. McNamara. The investigation revealed a shocking lack of remorse for McDuff, who claimed he was innocent and that Green was the real killer. But Green's confession and the physical evidence told a different story. As the trial unfolded, prosecutors presented a chilling picture of McDuff's crimes, detailing the brutal murders and rape. Green testified against McDuff, revealing the extent of his accomplice's violence and manipulation. Kenneth's defense team argued that Green was the mastermind, but the jury saw right through that ruse. Kenneth McDuff received the death sentence by electric chair. Roy Dale Green was sentenced to 25 years and was released in 1979. In the years that followed, McDuff continued to manipulate and charm his way through the criminal justice system, earning the nickname the Broomstick Killer for his signature weapon of choice. His death sentence was commuted to a life sentence, and he managed to hire an attorney that compiled a dossier of evidence that showed that maybe Roy Dale Green was the real killer. Some parole board members were impressed with this collection of evidence and determined that Kenneth McDuff could still, quote, contribute to society. In 1989, the Broomstick Killer was released back into the world. He got a job making $4 per hour at a gas station and started school at Texas State Technical College in Waco. Only less than a week after his release, McDuff started killing again. He went on a murder spree spanning several Texas counties, which made a coordinated investigation difficult. Investigators didn't know that they were looking for the same person. However, police did learn that Kenneth was dealing drugs and had a firearm, both federal offenses for a convicted felon. A warrant was issued for his arrest, but by that time, Kenneth fled to Missouri, going by the name Richard Fowler. In Kansas City, he got another regular job. In his free time, he liked to solicit sex workers, which he was arrested for, fingerprinted, and released. In 1992, one of McDuff's co-workers watched an episode of America's Most Wanted that featured the man that he knew as Richard Fowler, but they were calling Kenneth McDuff. He contacted the Kansas City police and they investigated. They discovered Fowler had a police record, having been arrested and fingerprinted for soliciting prostitutes. A fingerprint comparison revealed the match. Fowler was, in fact, McDuff, the notorious fugitive who had evaded justice for so long. As the investigation unfolded, detectives learned that McDuff had been living a double life. By day, he worked as a garbage collector, blending in with his co-workers and charming his way into their trust. But by night, he continued to feed his dark desires, preying on vulnerable individuals and leaving a trail of terror in his wake. On May 4th, 1992, a team of 6 officers, including some special guest officers, arrested McDuff as he drove to a landfill south of Kansas City. This arrest marked a significant moment, as the fathers of the arresting officers had been the same ones who apprehended McDuff back in 1966. The arresting officers had grown up hearing stories about McDuff's brutal crimes and the impact he had on their families. For them, this arrest was personal. They had dedicated their careers to bringing justice to the victims and their families, and finally, they'd caught the man who had eluded them for so long. As McDuff was taken into custody, the true extent of his crimes began to surface. He was linked to numerous unsolved murders, rapes, and disappearances. The investigation revealed a master manipulator who used his charm and charisma to evade detection and continue his reign of terror. On June 26, 1992, Kenneth McDuff faced justice when he was indicted for the capital murder of Brenda Joyce Northrup in McLennan County, Texas. The evidence against him was overwhelming, and he was found guilty. In Texas, the fate of those convicted of capital murder lies in the hands of the jury. They must decide whether the defendant will spend the rest of their life in prison or face the ultimate punishment, the death penalty. Journalist Gary Cartwright spoke for many when he expressed his hope that McDuff would receive the latter, saying, quote, "If there has ever been a good argument for the death penalty, it's Kenneth McDuff." Cartwright's words echoed the sentiments of many who believed McDuff's crimes were among the most heinous in Texas history. On February 18, 1993, the jury delivered their verdict. McDuff would be sentenced to death. This decision brought a sense of relief to the families of McDuff's victims who had waited years for justice. But the legal process is slow, and appeals dragged out the execution date. McDuff's legal team filed motion after motion, attempting to delay the inevitable. Finally, on November 17, 1998, the Western District Court denied McDuff's last appeal, and he was scheduled to meet his maker. As the day of his execution approached, McDuff's demeanor remained calm and collected. He showed no remorse for his crimes, and his only concern seemed to be of his own fate. Kenneth McDuff's final resting place is the Captain Joe Bird Cemetery, also known as Peckerwood Hill in Huntsville, Texas. This unassuming grave is the final destination for prisoners whose families chose not to claim their remains. McDuff's headstone bears only the most basic of information: his date of execution, an X marking his fate, and his death row number. Kenneth McDuff's case serves as a reminder of the importance of the criminal justice system and the need for accountability. His crimes were a stark reminder of the darkness that exists in our world, but also the resilience and determination of those who seek justice, even if it comes at the hands of the next generation. In total, Kenneth McDuff, the Broomstick Killer, is believed to have killed more than 14 people. That is 10-Minute Murder for today. Brief and bingeable true crime. I'm Joe, I'm the host, and thank you for taking the time to listen to 10-Minute Murder. If you're a brand new listener, make sure wherever you like to listen to podcasts, probably where you're listening right now, that you hit subscribe. And other people, they tell me I like to listen in a couple different places. And you know what? I do the same thing. If I'm on my phone, I listen on one app. If I'm in my car, I listen on a different app. And miscellaneous apps, I'll do different, I don't know. I subscribe to the same podcasts on most of them. And I figured you might be the same way. So make sure wherever you like to listen to 10-Minute Murder, you're subscribed on all of those devices so that you'll more easily be able to catch up with the show. If you have any email questions, you can email them to me, or just anything that you want to talk about. joe@10minutemurder.com. Speaking of, here's Michelle in Rhode Island. I enjoy your podcast. I live in Rhode Island, and since it's such a small state, it takes me only 10 minutes to get anywhere I'm going. Perfect for 10-minute murders. Thank you for getting to the point, articulating, and enunciating so well. And then she goes in to discuss a case that she'd like me to cover. That sounds pretty cool. Take care, Michelle. And Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to send me that email, and I really appreciate the case suggestion. Like I said, if you'd like to send me an email, joe@10minutemurder.com is my email address. You can go to the website, 10minutemurder.com. There's a blog there, and I post several other things, so you can go there and also contact me through the website, 10minutemurder.com. All right, that's going to do it. That's today's episode. Thank you so much for listening.